Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy hearing shocking and unforgettable stories, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. And now, let's jump straight into today's story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to contribute to my stepson's college fund? My 39 male and my wife Emily, 38 female, have been married for 12 years. Emily has a son James, 17, from a previous relationship with Dan. Emily left Dan when she caught him cheating with a co-worker. They shared 50-50 custody of James. I met Emily about a year after she had left Dan a year later. Dan married his affair partner, and Em and I got married soon after. James never really bonded to me. I admit that I tried a little too hard initially to get him to like me, but backed off when I realized I was trying too hard and it was having the opposite impact. Over the years we've built a tense acceptance of sorts, if that makes sense. Em and I have 3 kids, 10 female, 7 male and 4 male. James doesn't have a good relationship with them either. He bonds well with Dan's sons, but doesn't like spending much time with our kids. He isn't mean to them but just ignores them mostly. The eldest two now just avoid him when he is home. Em and I both have well-paying jobs and early on, we decided that I would contribute 80% to our trio's college fund, and Em would do 20%. 'Cause she would contribute 100% to James' college fund. We didn't know if Dan was making any such arrangements on his end, but we thought that at least this way, James would have something instead of nothing. M. recently sat him down to talk to him about his college fund. He seemed happy with the financial help he was going to get. He went off to Dan's for the weekend, and when he came back he asked him about our kids' college funds. When he learned that the amount was fairly higher than his, he was upset. When he asked about the disparity, M told him about our college fund setup. He was furious to know that I hadn't contributed to his college fund. He said that I was just pretending to play family with him all these years, that I really didn't care about him, and was a heartless a-hole. Em suggested that we could take some money out of our youngest fund and give it to James, and that she would add it back over time. But she said that it's my call, that she won't pressurize me either way, and would accept whatever I decided. Quite frankly, I don't want to do it. James idolizes his crappy father, even now that he knows he cheated on his mother. I could deal with his crappy behavior with me, but I never understood his attitude towards our kids. We even tried going to family therapy, but he refused to go because I wasn't his family. Now when he needs money, suddenly I am family. I know I am perhaps being petty, but I don't want to give him the money, so am I the a-hole? Edit. I think some clarifications are in order. 1. I don't hate that James idolizes his father. I hate that he blames his mother for their family breaking up. When James was 13 he had heard from one of his older cousins from Dan's side that what his father had done that led to Emily leaving. When he confronted her about it she explained. We tried therapy then but didn't happen. We'll explain later. Last year he told his mother that he believed she was responsible, that instead of leaving Dan, she should have forgotten about what he did and continued to stay with him. Em was expectedly shocked, but when she asked him if the situation was reversed and she had cheated on Dan and he left her, would then Dan be blamed for the family breaking up? He said no, that would definitely be her fault and made no further explanations. This was not as a result of an argument or heat of the moment statement. Ironically, this was a casual dinner table conversation. The other kids had to be excused from the table. Too, when Em and I had gotten together and things were starting to look serious, she had wanted to take him to a child therapist who could help him adjust better to the changing situation around him. Since they shared 50-50 custody, Dan's consent was needed. He refused. When we were going to get married, we tried therapy. Dan said he got married before us and James had no issues. We were overreacting, he didn't need therapy. When the above incident happened, when Em was pregnant with our daughter, and most recently, after last year's incident, this time we asked him directly. We thought if he agreed to family therapy, then we could speak to our lawyer and work around the custody arrangement since he was almost an adult. This was when he refused therapy saying I wasn't family. 3. For all those saying that I am treating a teenager like an adult, that I made him feel like the other and not one of us. We tried. When we both started earning well, we wanted to splurge on our kids during birthdays and holidays. James was never excluded. Whatever our kids got, he got too. In fact, as he was older, he got to pick what he wanted. For his 11th birthday, he wanted to go to Disney World. Both of Dan's kids were invited. His youngest son and my daughter are the same age. He went, she wasn't invited. We stayed home, for we started the college funds about a year after our daughter was born. Em couldn't start one for James earlier. Since she was a stay-at-home mom when she was with Dan, it took her a while to get back on her feet. She wasn't in a position to immediately start a college fund for him. What a lot of you pointed out is right. He has been short-changed. Em will rectify that and make up the deficit he should get by the time he starts college, but that will still not make it as much as the remaining 3. We have decided to sit and have a chat with him this weekend about everything. You're definitely not the one in the wrong here. This isn't your responsibility, and it never should have been placed on your shoulders in the first place. If James' biological father, this man Dan seems to idolize so much, hasn't been contributing at all, then why on earth would it fall on you to do more than him? That would be completely backwards. James has 2 actual parents who should be responsible for his education costs. If money is needed, then the solution is simple. His dad needs to step up, not you. It sounds like James came back from seeing his biological father with a bunch of loaded questions, almost as if someone put those ideas in his head. Dan probably saw where this was going and panicked, worried he'd look like the bad guy for not stepping in financially, so instead of taking responsibility, he tried to redirect everything toward you. That's unfair and manipulative. The truth is, the only people who should be figuring this out are James' parents, not you, not anyone else. If his dad wants to be seen as the good guy, then he needs to actually be one by contributing, not by dodging responsibility and letting others carry the burden. And we have an update, so let's see what happens next. Update: It's been an eye-opening weekend, thanks to everyone who weighed in, even the aggressive ones. I knew what I was signing up for posting on Reddit. Before the update, a couple clarifications, because gaps in info turned into wild assumptions. When I said I came on a little too strong with James when we met, some of you pictured me grabbing a toddler by the neck and hissing, "Call me daddy." No, I was nervous and acted like an idiot, and used an over-the-top baby voice because I'd barely been around toddlers. Emily later said I sounded like a circus clown on 2 cartons of Red Bull. Cringe? Absolutely malicious? No. Many of you had questions regarding therapy. I shared the timeline in the comments, so I'm not going to rewrite that again. Many called my wife the a-hole for sharing the college fund amounts for our kids. I showed her the post. She explained James came back from Dan's with questions like when the fund started, how much, etc. He said, "So mine is XXX and theirs is YYY. With his XXX higher than our kids' YYY." Without thinking, yes, stupidly, Emily corrected him. "No, yours is AAA and theirs is BBB." That snowballed into what I wrote earlier. It wasn't a diabolical plan to make me pay more. It was a thoughtless correction. With that out of the way, Emily, James and I sat down for a conversation yesterday. James didn't want to talk to me, but I told him that if he expected me to even think about contributing to his college fund, then I've got loads of questions he needs to answer. It was an extremely long conversation, and many revelations came to be. So I am going to give a summary of the things we finally found out from James. Even before Emily and Dan had broken up, not divorced, they were never married, Dan had occasionally brought James to his affair partner's place, so James was familiar with her. After the breakup, Dan immediately moved in with his affair partner. Emily, who was a stay-at-home mom till then, struggled initially to get back on her feet. Needless to say, James' home life with Emily was a little more chaotic than at Dan and his affair partner's. Em hadn't told James that she had left his father since he'd cheated on her. Telling that to a toddler wouldn't make any sense, but apparently in the early days Dan used to tell James that Em would eventually come back to him. I think he may have been holding out hope for reuniting with Emily. "And that's where I came in," Dan told James that as long as I am around, I would not let him go back to Dan. When Dan married his affair partner, he told James that it was temporary. It was a way to make Emily jealous. When we got married, he told James that it was my way of making it even more difficult for Emily to get back to their family. When James had found out from his cousin that his father had cheated on his mother, which was the reason for their breakup, when James had asked Emily about it, she had been open and honest about everything. When he confronted Dan about the same, he told James that Emily had left him for a long time, and his loneliness made him miss her a lot, and so he found some comfort with a fair partner. Emily's father had met with a car accident, and she was with her parents for about 3 weeks to help them, and that's all the alone time Dan could handle before he needed to dip his wick in something, but it was a reasonable enough explanation for James to absolve his father of all sins. When Emily got pregnant with our daughter, Dan told James, "Now that I have started pumping my spawn into his mother," exact words James used, "James' family was destroyed forever." He told James that Emily and I had been wanting to take him to therapy, which was actually a ruse. What we were really trying to do was take him to a doctor who would declare him a problem child, and then we would ship him off to boarding school so that we could continue to play happy family without being bothered by him. Only Dan and his family were fighting to keep James with them. James admitted that he had hoped his detached behavior around my family and happy and joyous behavior around Dan's would convince Emily that my kids and I were evil and she would eventually leave us. But sadly, I kept and I quote knocking up his mom, making it harder for her to leave. Expectedly, Emily was beyond distraught to hear everything. To be honest, at the moment I couldn't wrap my head around it much either. I asked if Dan had a college fund saved up for him and his sons. James said Affair Partners' parents have set up a trust fund for Dan's sons, but that does not include James, since he isn't their grandson. Dan's not saved up anything for anyone. I asked James why he suddenly thinks I should contribute to his fund when he has turned down every opportunity for us to be a family. He said he was actually okay with the amount that Emily initially told him about, but Dan made him realize that we were undercutting him, so he came back to demand more. I asked if I pay the money, will that then make us family? Even if he can't accept me as a step-parent, can we be friends? Can he be a little more friendlier with my kids when he is around? He straight up said no. He said that after all these years, he knows me or my kids are not the evil beings his father made us seem, but he still feels I am the reason his parents could never get back together again, and for that he will always hate me, and since my kids are well my kids, he's never going to like them either. And since now he knows that Emily isn't going to leave her family, he said his plan was once he was off to college, he would cut off contact with all of us. He does plan to eventually get back in touch with his mother when he feels he is ready to forgive for breaking up his family, but he can't do that right now. Emily and I have had a long and honest discussion. I have decided that I will not be making any contributions to James' college fund. Emily will continue the contribution that she was already making and hand it over to him once he turns 18. We will no longer be pursuing family therapy with James. We will not try to change James' mind about going no contact with us after he goes off to college. We've done all that we could do. We're going to stop now. If James is happy with Dan's family, then we're happy for him. It's going to be hard for Emily, but even she has accepted that after James' recent revelations, she's having a hard time reconciling her little boy with this cynical teenager. We have both taken individual and couples therapy before. Mainly due to the stress and anxiety James' behavior used to put on us as a family, we are looking into starting again. Hopefully, we'll be able to overcome this in time. Well, this whole situation is just heartbreaking and infuriating. Dan is absolute garbage for manipulating his own son like this. I genuinely feel sorry for James because he can't see the truth right now, and I just hope one day he grows up enough to realize who's actually been there for him and who's been using him. That said, James isn't blameless either. I get that he's young and hurting, but at some point pain doesn't excuse cruelty. To graciously forgive his mom for breaking the family when it was his dad who blew it all up by sleeping with a coworker. That's not just misguided, that's being in a hole. He even admitted that if the roles were reversed, he'd absolutely blame the mother. That shows he knows, deep down, where the blame lies, but he still chooses to pin it all on her. That's pure misogyny. It's so unfair, with all the betrayal and lies from his dad. You'd think his anger would land in the right place. Instead, it's completely misplaced, and sadly, that's the ugly result of parental alienation. His father has poisoned him so thoroughly that James may struggle to ever form healthy relationships. It's tragic, but when someone's that far gone, sometimes the only thing you can do is step back, love them from a distance, and hope that someday, somehow, they start to question the poison they've been fed. And that's where today's story ends. What do you think about this whole situation? Do you think James will ever realize who truly stood by him? Let me know your thoughts down below. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.